hey, please help Australia stop the fires by either donating or spreading the word, or both. That would be cool. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and today I am going to do my first album review of 2020, also my first album review of the decade, and also I am at 95th of 95 subscribers now, which is pretty awesome. And at 100th subscriber, I will do some special videos, and yeah. Anyways, I'm going to talk about an album that I love a lot, and because I want to start off the year great. And you may think that I only listen to albums in the 2010s, and yes, I do listen to a lot of music from the 2010s, and I review only albums from the 2010s in the past few months because I have to wrap up my best albums list. But now I can do albums that are not from the 2010s. Actually, this album is from the year 1991, and that is Slint with Spiderland. So, Slint is a math rock, post-hardcore spoken word band from Kentucky, USA. And Spiderland is their sophomore, also their last album, last studio album, anyways, in the year 1991. And they did a couple of collab albums and I think a couple of EPs, but this is their most iconic project and also their last album in their discography. And this has to be one of the most important albums in rock music ever. Not only is it the one of the classics in the MU musical community, but I think generally this album really is one of the best rock albums ever made. And also, this is a very special album because they made rock music, yes, but in a way they made rock music that's poetic and incredibly cinematic, like Godspeed You Black Emperor, except Slint came out before Godspeed. I think, right? Anyways, what makes this album special is the very jagged grooves and angular bass riffs that makes this album mathematic, but also the incredibly poetic and dark, but also beautiful lyrics that makes this album incredibly cinematic. Plus, we have the vocal performances, which can be very explosive and expressive and insane, but also very hushed, quiet, and whispery for the most part of the album, which actually doesn't make this album boring at all. It actually makes this album even more of an interesting listen because they're telling stories that run so deep emotionally and powerfully with vocal delivery such as this. It's perfect. And then, of course, we get the snappy, crispy drums, which are amazing. And the instrumentals overall, they are more bare, more slow, very long-winded, but they are amazing at building tension, building atmosphere, making this one of the most unique rock albums of ever. And while this is a rock album, and a lot of rock music in the 80s are very straightforward, they're hits, they're huge hits, and everyone's just rocking out, jamming out to these hits, and there are a lot of awesome rock jams and riffs, but for Slint's case, for the 6 songs off of Spiderland, you can't really jam to them, you can't really party with them. They're very still, very reserved, and listening to this album instead of, being hit in the face with some hard hitting and straightforward bangers, you're gonna get chills and hallucinate and think of thoughts that you'd never think you'd think one day, but you did. And that is Spiderland. So we have 6 long songs, and it makes up for 40 minutes in the album. And the album starts off with Breadcrumb Trail, which is this very explosive cinematic opening for the album that is incredibly epic and gigantic in scale, starting off with some plucked, ringy harmonic guitars that are just very sweet and very innocent, just bang, 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 dun, 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 dun. And then the explosive guitars just slam and it becomes gargantuan in style, and then we have the vocals which just crashes in like thunder, screaming, creeping up into the sky. It's very epic indeed. And this song sort of tells a story about this person who is, I guess, in the middle of a theme park, an amusement park, running into a fortune teller. And after being told the fortune, the person was just really upset and went for the roller coaster. And the instrumentals, of course, they get a little wilder and a little more punkier when the person's on the roller coaster, but later on, it just goes downhill into a very depressing valley of darkness where this person finally accepts fate. And yeah, this is an amazing song. The guitars, they're actually really versatile. Sometimes they're very cinematic and epic and open, but sometimes it's incredibly disorienting, kind of hesitates, doubting itself a little bit, and it can be very, very nightmarish, soaring to nightmarish highs while crushing down, plummeting down into depressing lows. And we also get some dissonant interludes on this track. It's actually very versatile instrumentally and a very epic opening as well. And I just really love the chords on this track. Sometimes they feel really warm, but also sometimes they're very cold and lonesome, and it's beautiful. It's an iconic start to the album, and it's fantastic. And then we have the second track, Nosferatu Man, which is about Nosferatu the vampire, of course. And I guess this is the most straightforward, the most punk, the most accessible song on the entire album, with some very mathematic punk slash post-punk guitar riffs with an odd time signature, and we get some really screamy guitars and some really sinister bass on this album and on this track. That's really, really friggin' fantastic. And we have the chorus, which is more scratchy, more impulsive, more grungy, the early 90s grunge feel. It's there, it's present, but this track sort of distorts it and turns this song into more of a narrative heavy character study of Nosferatu Man, the vampire sort of drinking blood. The ragged riffs at the end of the track really pairs with the dark, whispery vocals that are just very eerie and ominous in the back very, very well. And it's another amazing track. And then we have the third track on the track list, and that is Dawn, A Man. And this is one of the more inaccessible tracks on the album, very reserved and quiet. Basically, we get a very thin, quiet layer of acoustic guitars that sound very lost and dreary on top of a spoken word. Not on top, but I guess alongside, together with some really hushed, quiet spoken word about a guy named Don, who stepped outside. In the beginning of the song, stepped outside from a party, feeling socially anxious, not really knowing what to do. And I get that a lot of people actually relate to the song because of the main character, the protagonist of the song, sort of feeling unwell and unsure of his life, his social life, and basically all other aspects of life. And I can really see why people relate to the lyrics of the song. And instead of actually returning to the party and do something stupid, the guy actually went back home. And in the next morning, he had a hard look at himself at the mirror, and he made mature decisions, trying to fix problems. And it's actually a really beautiful and heartfelt and moving story about getting over your problems and sort of having this faith that you have to fix your life even though it's a mess. And even though instrumentally this isn't the best thing in the world, the narrative on this track really carries this track along, and that's why I still like this track a lot. And then afterwards we have a more musical track, and that is Washer. But even though it's musical, it's still not very accessible. We get some really twinkly, nostalgic, incredibly beautiful and gorgeous descending guitar chords that are incredibly sad and lonely. It's like recalling a very beautiful memory from the past. and this person is gone now, which is exactly the narrative in this story where the protagonist had to say goodbye to a lover who is probably already long lost, and this person had to, I guess, move on with life. And it's very sorrowful, very dramatic. But it isn't an impulsive song. It doesn't explode. In fact, it slows down after a very, very big crescendo. So I guess, yeah, it kind of explodes. But in a way, it's dramatic, and in a way, it fits the story so well. I mean, just the tone, the rise and the fall, it's just perfect. For the second to last track, we have For Dinner, dot dot dot. And this is a 5 minute long instrumental piece that's pretty moody and quiet. Again, really reserved and very minimalist. We get some subtle drums and guitars that feel really lost and aimless. It feels like the track is unsure of what it is. And I guess, yes, after the very emotional Washer and before the very emotional Good Morning Captain, we sort of need a bit of a break, but I guess this is not one of the best tracks on the album. One of the least eventful, actually. But the next track, actually the ending of the album, the ultimate finale of the album, Good Morning Captain, is my absolute favorite song on the album and one of my favorite rock songs of all times. Period. It's that great of a song. If you've seen my Spotify Wrapped list, this song is actually at my number 2 place as my most replayed song of the year. Apparently, I didn't know that I listened to the song this much, but I mean, this song is so great, I keep going back to it. This has to be one of the darkest rock songs and songs in general I've ever heard, and I don't use the word dark very easily. I really put the word dark in a high place. Like whenever I describe that something's dark, like it really is. And I must absolutely say that this track is dark. It's dreary, it's ominous, it's eerie, it gives you chills, and it's the ultimate finale of a captain's life. A captain who was on a ship, but now everybody's gone, he's alone, and he's facing death. And these are the last words that he mumbled out of his barely breathing mouth or body, and alongside with his hallucinations, he meet his demise. The track starts off with these really shrunken down, just very tiny, tiptoeing guitars, just din 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 din, and then we get the bass riffs that just overshadows it, masks over it very darkly, and it's just groovy. But it's just very sinister. Dun, 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 dun. Bam, 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 bam. The guitar tones on this track, they're so eerie, they're so ominous, they're so cold, but it's not the kind of ominous and eerie where it's almost silence, where it's super atmospheric and moody. It constantly chugs and moves along like a choo-choo train. Except with each chug, the darkness, it's constant, it's there, and you're just moving forward along your timeline for the rest of your life, slowly towards death. And we also get the drums, which are just so snappy and crispy and crunchy. It's fantastic, and it's mind-numbing. It's awesome, and it doesn't just go playing one note for a very long time. It occasionally detours into a very evil guitar line where I guess it sounds like the captain's trying to look for alternatives to escape his fate, but nah, man, you're dead. And we also get these really loud walls of guitars that are just noisy and tortured, just tortured to the core of the soul. And around the 4 minute mark, we even get some guitars that just sounds like an anchor pulling up on a ship, just gang 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 gang, and I have no idea how did they manage to get that guitar tone, but it's haunting. It is haunting. And then at the end, nobody's prepared for it, but we have a very, very tortured scream where the vocalist goes, "I miss you! I miss you!" Like, really, really tortured. Apparently, according to some trivia, the vocalist, the guy actually screamed so hard he lost his voice after screaming, "I miss you." And it was painful, but it just requires such inhumanity because it just exceeds normal singing, and it's now in the territory of true pain and torture. That's what it takes to create a piece of art that's this dark and this tortured and yet this moving and this dreadful. I mean, I should probably make a short film out of this song just by the narrative of this song. I can actually make a short film, and it's actually a great premise in my opinion. But yeah, amazing ending to the album, amazing album. Very twisted, very sinister ending, but also some legitimately heartfelt and powerful and emotional moments in the album, and also very epic and cinematic and uncertain moments in the album as well. Just ups and downs like the roller coaster. So yeah, my favorite song here is Good Morning Captain, and my least favorite song here is For Dinner. I am giving Slint's Spiderland a strong 9 to a 10 out of 10. Yeah, another 10 out of 10. Yay. Yeah, have you listened to Slint Spiderland? From 1 to 10, how much you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. Also, for my next album review, I'm going to review The Microphones, The Glow Part 2, and then maybe My Bloody Valentine's, Loveless, or Fugazi's Repeater, or Wire's Pink Flag, and I still have a bunch of Pink Floyd albums and Radiohead albums to review, and also Led Zeppelin 4, and also a bunch of other albums. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.